Hi, welcome to Downshift. My name is Matt. And this is the Maserati Levante. This is the flagship SUV from Little Italy, the Maserati Levante. And while Maserati may not be as Italian as it once was, there's still a lot to get excited about behind the wheel. Let me show you what I mean. And we'll start where every car review starts, and that's with the engine. No, we don't have the big Trofeo V8 here, this is the Modena trim. But you know what? Go on the Maserati website and play the V8 and the V6 next to each other in terms of startup and rev noise, and just tell me that you don't like this 6-cylinder better. And that's coming from me. This 3-liter twin-turbo V6 is good for an output of 424 horsepower and 428 pound-feet of torque. These are not small numbers from a TT V6. All that power goes through a Snappy ZF 8-speed transmission to all 4 wheels, and that means 0 to 60 is done in this Levante in just under 5 seconds. Ah yes, 0 to 60, the hallmark metric of any sports car. But this is a mid-size SUV, and it doesn't even have the V8, which may sound like downsides, but even still, this thing is dishing out some serious pace. But it's not the straight line speed or the emotional exhaust that has me captivated with this thing. It's the dynamics and handling. Remember how I said this was a mid-size SUV? Well, you couldn't tell from behind the wheel. There's a sharpness you get in the driver's seat that's typically reserved for sports sedans. And that didn't happen by accident. Maserati today falls under the Stellantis umbrella, but all those years under Ferrari certainly left them with something. Things like dual wishbone front suspension, self-leveling air springs, and a true mechanical limited slip differential out back. I mean, these are things you don't even get in a modern Supra, but you get them here. And all those things make this Levante handle way better than it should. And importantly, handle well enough to make me forget there's no V8 grumbling at me. There's also a benefit of not having a V8, and that's in the weight. This tips the scales at a leaner 5,000 pounds versus a heavier and more cumbersome V8. From the driver's seat, there's nothing not to like. The power is great, the sound is emotional, the gearbox is snappy and dramatic, the chassis and suspension work together seamlessly, and the brakes, they're strong and confident. And if for whatever reason you want to settle down and drive like a more civilized adult, all you have to do is turn it into comfort mode and the steering will lighten off, the suspension will soften back, the transmission smooths out, and you're left wafting down the road in luxury. But let's step outside because we need to address this color. Honestly, the driving experience on this Levante is one of the best things about the car. But then you step outside and you have this gorgeous SUV draped in the loudest, most Italian color imaginable. The color is called Fioroceri Urban Green. And think of Fioroceri as Maserati Custom, or Porsche Paint to Sample, or BMW Individual. Ultimately, I think the Levante is one of the best looking SUVs on sale today. It looks fast, it looks sharp, and it has for years. It's like the SUV version of Maserati's own Gran Turismo, one of the best looking cars of all time. Up front you have the awesome classic Maserati grille, that spokes are concave. And then in the center you have a massive trident, and one just above for good measure. On either side are simple bar running lights that almost seem tied together by the chrome bar that runs the width of the grille. It's a very aggressive front end to be sure. Around the side you're sitting on probably the best spec 21-inch black wheels to complement this paint. You've of course got body-colored wheel arches despite some off-road illusions from the interior, but we'll get to that. And then on your front fender you have the prototypical Maserati trim badge and the triple grille. It reminds me of what we're used to seeing on AMG models from Mercedes. And then zooming out from profile, you can really see how long the hood is and how aggressively raked and sloped the rear is once you get past the seats. It's not to the point of a coupified body style, but it's a nice elegant taper. And then just below you have some of the widest rear hips of any SUV out there. And of course your D-pillar dons a trident. It wouldn't be a Maserati without one. And then as we make our way around back, you have simple taillights that are again connected by a bar of chrome. And then a black diffuser and quad tips, which sound incredible. Oh, and 6,000 pounds of towing, which is shockingly good for something like this. So it goes beautifully and it has the looks to match, but let's step inside. So this is the part of the video where the big but comes in, right? Well, kind of yes and no. On one hand, it's not quite as modern or updated as some rivals, but it still has a great sense of style and luxury, and you're not really missing much of anything. And if you're really concerned, there's a new generation that'll follow suit from the little sister Grecale that we just did, so be sure to check that out. The design itself here is what I would consider modern and competitive. The style is clean and elegant looking. The leatherwork is fantastic. There's tridents embroidered into the headrests front and rear. And the stitching is really nice and everything is wrapped in padded leather. And then you get a very Porsche Chrono style clock downing your dash. But it's not all flash. You get nice features and luxuries too. Heated and cooled seats up front, heated steering wheel, you get soft closed doors, you've got a big pano roof bringing in a bunch of light. And then there's the technology suite. You've got a fairly competitive driver assist suite with all of the autopilot stuff that you'd expect. And you've got a nice sized head unit. But you do get Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. And you've got an upgraded 900 watt Harman Kardon sound system. And then you've got really crazy stuff that you interact with all the time, like the massive shift paddles that are a mile long. And your drive modes are funny too. You've got off-road, ice, and sport. And then the traction and damper stiffness controls underneath that. And of course, you've got air ride, so you can adjust the height manually or let the car figure it out based on your drive mode. And then, as we talk about the rear seats, they're nice and spacious, and you get climate vents and dual USB, and interestingly, a 12 volt in the rear. And then, rounding the cabin out, you have a great sized trunk. And the power close button is on the side of the trunk rather than the tailgate itself, as it should be. So while it may not be as flashy as something like BMW's iDrive 8 or Mercedes' new Hyperscreen, you're really not missing out on a whole lot. And to be honest, I'd put up with a lot worse to get the driving experience that this thing brings. So with that, let's do some final thoughts. The Maserati Levante Modena. At $112,000 as tested, it's a lot of money. But you get an experience here that you're not going to get anywhere else. The Maserati experience is so much more unique and special than the BMW or Audi or Mercedes. You see those drive down the street every 10 seconds. But when you tell your friends you have a Maserati, that means something totally different. So thanks to our friends at Maserati of Milwaukee for letting us have a go.